Stormtracker8's Weather University on WRIC Now is sponsored by Blank & Marcus, attorneys at law. Nice guys working to make a difference.
Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Matt DiNardo. Great to be with you. Today's Weather University, we're to continue our discussion about the tropics and so far how the tropical season has been. Joining me, as always, is Stormtracker8 meteorologist Jacqueline Waters. How are you, Jacqueline?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
Doing very, very well. So as I kind of alluded to, so far, we're in the second week of the season now. It is relatively quiet.
Yes, very quiet. I mean, we are in the beginning of the season, and it goes all the way through November, so we'll continue to keep an eye on it. But right now, it's good news that it is quiet.
One of the things we often look at, this is the kind of the big picture, stretching from Africa through the Caribbean Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic as well. We look at the sea surface temperatures because that's kind of one of the things that helps to add fuel to these storms. Not that we're seeing any right now.
And I mean, we're still pretty cool near Virginia Beach, near the 70s, but the further south you go, towards Florida, towards the Gulf, you start heating up with temperatures, sea surface temperatures ranging from about 80 to 85. And
then down in the Caribbean, it's really getting pretty warm.
Yes.
Almost mid-80s in this area. And this is typically, if we were to see something, stuff forming in the southern Gulf, Caribbean, that's where we would kind of see stuff going initially.
And it's only going to get warmer from here. I mean, we're only in June, so the sea surface temperatures are only going to rise.
Yeah, they are. And that's unfortunate because that, of course, promotes hurricanes. As we've seen in the past couple of years, we've seen tropical systems cross ocean waters or Caribbean waters that are anywhere from like 88, 89 degrees, super bath water, and those storms just blow up. Let's talk about the structure of a hurricane a little bit today.
Yeah, so I mean, they're very structured. They're gigantic storms, and there's a lot of moving parts with it. But you have this rising air, the warm, moist ocean air. It rises, it produces these strong thunderstorms, and then the big key of a hurricane is that eye, which is basically just that air going down, and it has that clear eye.
And people often say, you know, how could there be a clear spot because low pressure is rising air that should form clouds? And that's correct around the entire outside the eye wall, but really high up in the sky at the top of the hurricane, there is a little high pressure that allows the sinking air to clear things out.
Yeah, and I mean, when you see that clear eye, that usually indicates a stronger hurricane.
Right. And the smaller the eye, sometimes we might have the diameter across at only maybe 10, 15 miles, and that's really a super strong hurricane for sure.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things there. Just look at the structure again. The resulting flow, as you said, is the sinking air. The center means clearer skies, and that's kind of the hurricane structure. All right. So sometimes hurricanes are trying to form, but they just aren't getting going, and it may be because of dry air.
Yes, and we have the Sahara dust coming off of the coast of Africa, and the dust is actually good because it prevents hurricanes from really rapidly forming.
Right.
Because it's bringing in that dry air and it's limiting the moisture for the hurricane to form and to mature.
Especially when we have really, really strong ones, or if we have a weaker system, a weaker tropical system that's trying to form, it may not even get going at all because there's just too much dry air in there.
Yeah, or it will weaken it, or even if for a weaker storm, it might just even get it to fall apart completely.
Which is always what we're looking for, right? Yeah. I mean, we love tropical systems as long as they stay out in the ocean. When we start to forecast landfall, that's when we really feel bad for sure. So let's talk a little bit more about this Saharan dust. And this is kind of an idea of what it looks like. It is just that. It's dust coming off of the Sahara Desert.
Yep. And I mean, right now we are seeing a good amount of it. Right. And in the forecast, we actually are looking at that dust continuing, which is good because, again, that is basically, it limits the hurricanes from forming or from weakening. They'll help weaken the hurricanes. But you can see it just continues. This is all the way through Friday. So we want to keep seeing that dust because we don't want to see any of these crazy hurricanes.
And early in the season, when our winds are a little bit stronger from Africa toward the Atlantic, that's when we see more dust. But as those winds relax, we get into the summer season, the doldrums, the very quiet times, then that's when these tropical systems could really blow up because there isn't that dust there. All right, let's talk a little bit more about wind shear and hurricanes. This is another thing that can either stunt hurricanes or rip them apart.
Yes, and different from tornadoes because tornadoes, we want the wind shear.
Right.
And for those that don't know, wind shear is basically just wind, when you go up in the atmosphere, change in wind speed and wind direction. So we like wind shear in hurricanes because it helps basically that really structured storm. It helps make it fall apart.
Right. And I think we have a really good graphic here that you developed today. So when we look at it, we see that normally it's going upward, but this, as you said, change in direction, so we don't get that perfect flow upward. It kind of tilts, and that starts to shred the hurricane apart.
Yes, and it makes all the different air mixed together, and it just weakens.
You don't get that well-deformed eye or that eye wall or things like that. So those are some things that we look at there. So again, if you want storms not to form, we look at Saharan dust. That always helps. If you want storms to be ripped apart, it's got to go into a high shear environment.
Yes.
And right now, we do have some areas indicated by the red here of some high shear environment coming off of Africa and then through the extreme southern Caribbean. It wasn't that great. All right, so we said early on to start, we are still in the beginning stages of the hurricane season.
Yes, and with those ocean temperatures just continuing to warm, we're only going to see a more active season. Our peak, again, is September 10th. Usually that's when we see the most storms. So we'll continue to keep you updated, as of course.
I'm just not looking forward to having a lot of tropical activity. I mean, I love it for what we do, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think they're one of the most beautiful things to see form. But again, when you start forecasting where they're going to make landfall, that, of course, becomes...
I want to fly through one. That's still on my...
You still on that bucket list to take a hurricane hunter flight?
Yes, I'm going to do it one day.
Better you than me, for sure. Anyway. All right, so this has been a Weather University discussing where we are right now in the hurricane season and how tropical systems form and what sometimes makes them rip apart.
Yeah.
My, of course, wonderful colleague, Jacqueline Waters, has been my guest today. I want to thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
We will have another Weather University next week.
Yes,
Jacqueline,
can't
take
wait.
care.